All right. So I want to just take a moment to welcome everyone. This is the first webinar of the 2019 AMSSM MSIG Officer Campaign. So we really appreciate everyone who's able to be here with us today. Just a quick introduction to myself. My name is Luke Roberts. I am the president of the AMSSM MSIG this year. I've been able to serve as an officer for the last couple of years, so it's nice to be here now. I'm a third-year med student at West Virginia University School of Medicine. We also have Madison Eichstadt, who's the vice president of the Medical Student Interest Group, on standby just in case anything happens to me during this. She'll be able to take over as moderator. So I'll be serving as the moderator for this kind of question and answer session. With us, we have 5 fellows, currently 4 with us. The 5th is trying to figure out some technical difficulties with her camera. But they're from a variety of original residency specialties and now are all sports medicine fellows. So they're going to be able to answer questions that anyone has regarding the path that they took, any advice that they have or recommendations that they have. So we're going to, just to give a quick outline of how the webinar is going to work. We have some pre-formed questions that we're going to ask each of the fellows here. But all the students in attendance, at any point, type any questions you have into the public chat. After we go through some of these questions, I'll kind of pick and choose some of yours as you ask them, and we can ask them for the panel as a whole, or if you have a question for a specific fellow, just make sure you direct that in your question. So I guess without further ado, I want to go ahead and kind of take a moment to introduce each fellow. So I'll give them a chance to kind of tell who they are, where they did their school, and why they are in sports medicine. So Dr. Newby-Goodman, we'll start with you.
All right, great. So my name is Marcia Newby-Goodman. I'm originally from Virginia Beach, Virginia. I did my medical school actually out in Texas, in Galveston at University of Texas Medical Branch. Then I decided to do family medicine, my residency actually in Daytona Beach, Florida. And now I'm actually at the University of North Carolina doing my sports medicine fellowship. So one, I love the beach. So this is actually the furthest I'm from the beach in North Carolina. But I'm family medicine trained. I went to sports medicine because I did gymnastics. I actually went to undergrad University of Georgia, did gymnastics there. Just seeing my injuries and my teammates' injuries really got me interested in sports medicine. And the reason why I kind of went the primary care family medicine route, because I still loved all the other aspects of medicine, and I loved female athletes and everything related to that. And so that's kind of short story of how I got into family medicine, sports medicine.
Great. All right. Up next is Dr. Gende, who is our emergency medicine representative.
Yes, hi, thanks. I'm Alicia Gundy. I am a DO. I went to Chicago College of Osteopathic Medicine and did residency here at Iowa in emergency medicine, and now am the primary care sports medicine fellow, one of the fellows here at Iowa. What other things do we say, kind of why we got into sports medicine or why we chose emergency medicine? I like the challenge, the variety, the adrenaline, the ability to kind of quickly do something and then move on to the next task and or patient in that emergency medicine can offer. You get a little bit of that in sports medicine as well, as you get encouraged patients that want to heal, patients that want to get better. I like that aspect of it, and I like the aspect of kind of keeping people moving and competing and benefiting from sport.
Great, perfect. Up next is Dr. Lopez, who is our internal medicine representative.
Hi, everyone. Rich Lopez. I'm also a DO. I'm from South Jersey originally. Went to Rowan University, College of Osteopathic Medicine. I did my residency in North Jersey at Morristown in internal medicine. I also did an additional chief year on top of that, and currently doing a fellowship in Atlantic sports in the same area. My path is a little bit different. I would say going through internal medicine is a little bit less common. That being said, I think, there's a lot of hope for anyone who's going down that path. For me, I have a unique interest in fight medicine, MMA and boxing. So I always thought ringside, being a ringside physician would be very intriguing. So that's one of my unique kind of interests. Internal medicine is unique. I think you do have a pretty deep understanding of adult medicine. So certain areas, cardiovascular, which are important for athletes, I think it's important, and I think we do have a role. But yeah, it's any other questions I can answer moving forward, obviously.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Lopez. And lastly with us right now is Dr. Johnson, who is our PM&R representative.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming and taking the time to listen to what we have to say. So I did my residency or my med school. I did at Touro College of Osteopathic Medicine in New York City, and I followed that up with my residency in PM&R at New York Presbyterian Columbia Cornell. And now I'm the sports medicine fellow in Minneapolis at the Mayo Clinic. Really got into sports medicine. I was sports active my whole life: hockey, soccer, golf, baseball, kind of a little bit of everything. And really wanted to be able to take people who were injured and not able to do the things they love doing and getting them back in and getting them moving. And that's kind of what brought me into sports medicine to begin with. So yeah, looking forward to hearing some more questions.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much. And like I said, Dr. Wolf is our pediatric representative. She's not able to get her microphone and camera working, but if she's able to join at any point, we'll be sure to have a brief pause so she's able to do an introduction as well. So now I just want to kind of transition into some of the questions that we've prepared. Like I said, students, as you're listening, if there's any questions that you have, please just type them into the public chat or into the Q&A. Either way, we'll be able to see them. So first I want to start off with a question for Dr. Newby-Goodman. And it is kind of, as people apply for residency, to what extent do you think they should highlight their interest in sports medicine and their interest in doing a fellowship in sports medicine?
I think it's important to show that you're interested in, but I also think what's more important that you're interested in the primary specialty that you're going into. So I remember when I was applying, family medicine, for me, I want to be a family medicine doctor that does sports medicine. And I think lots of times when you go to or applying for residencies, that's your primary specialty. And I think you have to give it respect and also let people know, of course, you're interested in. It's not just something you're going to get through to get to the sports medicine, but at the same time, you could easily show interest into the family medicine and sports medicine, or really any primary specialty that you're interested in. So I don't think you should, because I remember sometimes just during the interview process, when say when I was a resident interviewing applicants, people who are only interested in the sports or the fellowship after is well, you have 3 years of the family medicine or whatever specialty. We have to show that you're committed to that, because ultimately you have to be a good physician in anything that you decide. So showing interest in shows motivation. So primary specialty, and then let them know also the sports medicine is important.
Great, I think that's great advice. Next up, we have a question for Dr. Gende, and that's about related to emergency medicine. How do you find that the shift work schedule that you have affects your ability to provide team coverage?
I don't think it negatively affects it. As fellows, we're here in Iowa, we have a scheduled amount of time that we spend in the emergency department, and that's consistent on a weekly basis. So your ability to provide team coverage and event coverage, it's not compromised by that at all. As I'm preparing for the next step in my job as an attending, I see it being kind of similar to my colleagues in sports medicine, where maybe your team is going to need you to travel with them for this weekend, and you've got call, or you have your 2 weekend overnight shifts in the ED. And so you'll simply work with your ED colleagues. Hey, can you cover me this weekend? I'll work for you next weekend. I have this sports commitment. I don't see it as a negative thing. I think it's something that it's compromising, just like we all do in medicine.
Okay. Dr. Lopez, this next question here is for you. What advantage did you like about internal medicine in general, and what made you take that route as opposed to a different route to getting into sports medicine?
Sure. I think I'll start off with saying I think there's not necessarily an advantage or disadvantage to any of the specialties we bring to the table. I think we all each have a specific skill set we bring to the table. Again, like I said, internal medicine is uncommon, to go down that route, but there is definitely hope if you're going down that route. For me, I think I got so used to seeing patients in the hospital every day, very sick patients, and I know the rest of the panel understands this, that it's funny in a way. I kind of went from patients saying, "Hey doc, I just want to live, or I just don't want to die." Now you're kind of transitioning to a patient population. You're kind of asking, "Hey, can I go like CrossFit again?" So it's very, it's that kind of patient population. So it's very fulfilling in that manner. But I think you bring to the table a certain compassion, when you're dealing with these kind of patients, because I think it's something that an orthopedist per se may not offer. And again, that's kind of the core of what we all do is primary care sports medicine. Kind of remembering those first two words, which is primary care, and never really letting go of that, because I think we do offer a unique skill set in that manner. For internal medicine itself, I think it does have a role. I know everyone has different experiences, but I know for me, we got some good opportunities to work professional teams, and I think some teams, depending on their culture, are looking for more subspecialized kind of practitioners. So they may want a different kind of doctor for every single part of healthcare. So they may want a separate OB-GYN, they may want a separate internist, they may want a separate cardiologist on the East Coast, whereas maybe in the Midwest they may want all-around family practitioner. So I think it's really depending on what you're looking for. I do think some professional teams may be looking for someone with internal medicine training, but it really depends. But again, I think we all bring a certain skill set, and I think we all are well equipped to treat patients. And I think fellowship year is really your year to shine and really to make the best of it. So again, I wouldn't say necessarily an advantage. I think you do have to jump through some hoops to kind of get to the fellowship of internal medicine, so you have to be mindful of that. Yeah, I think it's internal medicine. I'm glad I went down that route, even though it was an uncommon route.
Great. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Lopez. That was great. Some great information there. Dr. Johnson, this next question here is for you. How many times per week do you find yourself doing procedural work, ultrasound related things? And what kind of steps would you need to add that kind of service into your practice?
That's a great question. Coming out of PM&R, during residency, we get a pretty good quality of our ultrasound training throughout the residency program. And you're doing procedures a fair amount during residency. So we get, that's I think one of the strengths of PM&R in terms of their start in fellowship. You're kind of ahead of the game a little bit in terms of the ultrasound, but whereas you may be lacking in some of the other areas that Dr. Lopez mentioned, cardiac valves and those kind of things. So in a typical week, I think we do a fair amount of ultrasound guided interventions and just interventions in general. In my fellowship personally, I'm doing probably 3 days at least a week where I'm seeing patients in clinic and have an ultrasound available at all times to do any kind of injection that we need to. And even in cases where you don't need an ultrasound for injections, we're doing procedures pretty consistently. I think during my training, by the time I'll be done with my fellowship, I'll be pretty comfortable doing any level of ultrasound guided procedure or outpatient guided procedure. And I think that's a strength of the training that I've had so far. And I look forward to using that in the future. But I think most fellowships around the country, by the time they're done training, they'll have great education in both ultrasound and outpatient guided procedures that almost all fellows, if not all fellows, would be comfortable doing it as soon as they get out of their fellowship.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. So at this time, I'm hoping to open the floor to some student questions of people in attendance. So I haven't seen any come in yet, but keep brainstorming there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Dr. Wolf, is that you?
Yeah, hey, sorry, I can't get my video thing to work on my computer.
That's okay. All right. Glad you were able to call in. That's okay. So if you want to take just a quick moment here, Dr. Wolf, to introduce yourself, just let everyone know kind of where you did your training Then we'll go ahead and kind of get started with some questions for you as well.
Oh, sure. I'm Sigrid Wolf. I did my pediatrics training at University of Washington, and then I'm doing my fellowship at Northwestern University in Chicago, and I'm in a pediatric sports medicine specific fellowship.
Okay, great. So, Dr. Wolf, I'll go ahead and this next question here is for you. Do you find that specializing in pediatrics kind of limits your ability to provide coverage for, elite athletes?
I think it really depends on what you mean by elite athletes. So in our clinic, we see up to age 24. So many of the athletes that we see are elite. And we do care for the USA Gymnastics team at my clinic. So we do see a lot of elite athletes, but I think in terms of NFL, there's only one pediatrician who's currently a NFL team physician. But so basically after college and outside of the Olympic realm, I think in the professional sports realm, it can be a little bit more challenging.
Okay. Alrighty. Students, if you have any questions, start typing them away. Looks like we have our first one in here. This is from Grant. It says, hello, I'm a fourth-year medical student, and I'll be doing the 2020 MAT. What should I look for in a family medicine program in order to compete a sports medicine fellowship? So, Dr. Newby-Goodman, I think I'll kind of direct this question towards you.
Yep. So I think when you're looking at a family medicine program, one, you have to, sometimes it's not a requirement if they already have a sports medicine fellowship in conjunction with it. Because one, even if you decide not to stay there, because I went to a Halifax family medicine residency and they have a sports medicine fellowship there. But there's only one spot and two people in my year wanted to do sports medicine. So when you're looking for a program, I tend to look for one that is either closely related or has a sports medicine fellowship, because one, you're already going to get that training that you need because they already have like the tracks and a lot of the connections with the team for training rooms, and they already have like the attendings. So I think that's a big plus. But if you decide like you want to go somewhere else that doesn't have a direct family a sports medicine fellowship with it, I do think making sure that not like, oh yes, you could work with any high school team. I think you need to make sure they say, okay, maybe this resident has worked with this team, high school team was able to follow it all through the years, or we already have this connection that this resident has gone through, and making sure they have time to even attend like the AMSSM conferences and any type of other conferences. Because the biggest thing is making sure that you're actively involved with any kind of sports teams during family medicine fellowship, being active in that component, and also in terms of the educational aspect, having some attendings there that could help direct you in like MSK problems and stuff like that. So hopefully that answers your question well enough. If not, let me know.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Newby-Goodman.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like you answered his question.
I gotta go get a charger for my computer, so I'll be back.
Okay. That was a great question, Grant. So everyone else, keep those questions coming. Dr. Wolf, it looks like we have a question here specifically for you. So this is from Thomas. He says he recently matched into a Peds residency and he wants to pursue a career in sports, or he wants to pursue a sports medicine fellowship. What were some things you did in residency to match into a Peds sports medicine fellowship?
Sure. I think in pediatrics, you really have to go after some of those extra sports coverage opportunities because they're not part of the pediatric standard training. So some things I did was anytime there was a mass event, like I did my training in Seattle, so there were a lot of local marathons, and I volunteered on the medical team for those. And we did have a sports medicine department at University of Washington at Seattle Children's Hospital where I was, so I let all their attendings know, and so they would oftentimes feed me opportunities of, hey, why don't you come to this football game, or why don't you go to this heart screening? So just letting them know, even though we don't have a fellowship there right now, they were able to suggest a lot of opportunities for me. And then also, once they knew, then they helped me keeping my eyes out for a case, and I went to AMSSM 2 years of residency, and that was really helpful for me. Okay,
great. Thank you, Dr. Wolf. All righty, looks like we have another question here from Alex. Dr. Lopez, it looks like this one's directed towards you. So Alex is a third-year med student. He's interested in internal medicine, but also passionate about sports medicine. He wants to know what kind of hoops Dr. Lopez had to go through to get in the IM residency, and was there an expectation that internists should specialize in a more traditional specialty like cardiology?
Mm-hmm. I guess to answer the second question first, I think there's really not an expectation. You know, if you go to a program that's kind of, you know, looking out for your best interest, there's really shouldn't be any sway. As you know, if you were interested in internal medicine or sports medicine, they should give you their full support. But again, you know, I guess when you apply, just being cognizant about, you know, sports medicine fellowships in the area. For me, I was very lucky. I would say I was probably one of those MS3 and MS4s, not quite sure what I wanted to get into. I definitely did have an interest in sports medicine. I was part of the club. You know, I did some coverage, but I also had interest in things like, you know, critical care and GI, so I wasn't too sure what to go in. But I knew the program that, you know, was at the top of my list, which was Atlantic. They had a fellowship attached, so that was one thing to consider. So if you're going to apply to an internal medicine program, maybe seeing if there's a family medicine program with a fellowship attached, seeing if you can get tied into the game coverages, seeing if you can, attend the AMSSM meetings, potentially get a poster or present in some sort of manner. So those are kind of the hoops, you know, that I had to kind of go through. But again, I did place myself in a situation to optimize that opportunity. So again, just be cognizant of that. Be aware of your area. Be aware of the sports medicine docs in the area. Be aware of opportunities to rotate, you know, within your state or locale.
Okay. Looks like we have another question here from Grant. This one's not really directed towards anyone, so if any of the presenters feel like they have some good info to share here on this. The question is, do step 1, step 2, or step 3 scores factor into fellowship applications? And if not, what are the kind of key factors that sports med programs look into?
I can start off on this one. I think for the most part, they don't really factor as much per se, like, because you've already done your residency. If you've done well in residency, you've had good letters of recommendations, and you've shown that you've been committed to, like, been doing sports, done like mass participation, or had a high school team. I think that matters more. Of course, you never want to do poorly on purpose, not study for it, but I don't think it's as big of a deal. But others can kind of weigh in on it.
I think
definitely
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think in going through the application process with the fellow candidates this year, I think it kind of does, but not so much the number of like exactly what your score was on step 1, so much as like that you showed improvement in step 2, and then you showed improvement in step 3. So there was like a definite learning trajectory. I think Dr. Newby-Goodman is correct in that, like, you know, your coverage, your involvement at like the national conferences, your letters of recommendation, those play in a whole lot more. But again, as long as you have like a learning trajectory and like some improvement showing like, look, I am becoming like a physician, and look, I'm improving and becoming an even better physician, I think your exact number matters less than the trajectory.
Yeah, from talking to some fellowship directors and hearing what they're saying at different panels and everything, some will flat out say they don't even look at the fellowship scores. Some say that they are important because they want to make sure you can handle the academic rigors of your board exams. But I think, just like Alicia and Marcia said, your sports coverage, letters of recommendation from especially sports specific rotations and sports specific attending, I think those are far and away more important than the board scores.
You know, I think just making sure you're not an outlier on the wrong side. You know, I think again, it's your average scores are just consistent and compatible with a practitioner. I think that's all that matters.
It's all great information. Dr. Wolf, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
I think for us, the biggest thing was that I heard my program directors talking about was just, did you actually pass or not? Because they want people to come through the program who are then going to go on and pass the CAQ.
Good advice from everyone all around. Thank you all. Looks like we have another question here from Sean, who's a first-year med student in Texas. This is another kind of general one, if anyone has any good advice. So he's asking about his fourth-year rotation schedule, and he's wondering if it'd be more beneficial to do sports medicine rotations if you know that's something you want to do, if you should focus more on primary care rotations that you plan to match into, or if it's a better idea just to diversify your rotations.
I can start off. I would say if you're in your during your fourth year, I just say do what you want because really you gotta wait till residency or fellowship to truly know it. Yeah, you get a little background, baseline, but I don't think there'll be a huge step up per se because you did this one specific rotation. I think if it's something you want to do and you want to enjoy it, do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it.
Yeah, I think, strictly for learning purposes, that's great. I think us all being through the application process, I don't even know if there's a prompt to say you did a fourth-year rotation in something. I don't know if you guys remember any of that, but I don't remember. Yeah, I think if you want to learn, that's great, but it's not something you can put on your application per se.
I think it kind of depends where you're at. If you're at a medical school that has a sports medicine fellowship and you're, if you're going to do a family medicine residency, it depends. If you can start laying down some roots and maybe doing some research as a medical student with those sports med attendings, and then doing a rotation with them as well, and maybe that sports med attending does family medicine in the residency at that program that you want to match. I think you can start laying down some roots. I know that can be super beneficial for people when they are applying to residency and fellowship. But I don't think a sports medicine rotation as a fourth-year medical student is a necessity. Again, unless you're in a place where you can lay down those roots and just kind of continue to grow from there.
Okay. Dr. Johnson or Dr. Wolf, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that, or do you think the other ones covered it pretty well?
I think that covers it.
Okay. This next one's kind of just get to know you guys a little better. Alex is asking what your future goals are after your fellowship and kind of what you see yourself doing in sports medicine in 5 to 10 years.
I guess I can start because I just start talking first. But I plan on actually moving up to Virginia. So my dad is a family medicine doctor, and I plan on joining his practice, but just kind of starting the sports medicine component. Ideally, I'm going to have to kind of finagle my way into some local. There's a college right next to where he works, and we'll try to start maybe working their campus health type of picture, then eventually kind of work with the sports teams. But since I did gymnastics as well, I plan on actually going back to my home gym and kind of taking care of those athletes. Granted, though, I have that little bit of rapport, so kind of building more of that community setting is kind of my goal, where I plan on seeing and growing that over the next several years.
That's great. Dr. Gende?
I'm going to be returning back to my home state of Wisconsin, and I will be doing part EM, part sports medicine at a growing sports medicine practice in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and eventually working towards kind of like a 50-50 EM and sports coverage thing. I'll be the female sports medicine physician, so I plan on building a practice around that. And catering more to a female athlete and kind of people like myself who are recreational athletes who want to keep moving, keep lifting, and keep competing. And maybe, stomp out some diabetes or obesity every once and again too.
That's great. Dr. Johnson, how about you?
So yeah, I'm going to be starting working in a clinic in South Minnesota, doing a mix of 50-50 PM&R and sports medicine. and I'll be the only primary care sports person down there with a group of orthos. So it should be a good experience. And there's 3 colleges right in the area that I'm going to be working on, recruiting to our clinic to try and work with and provide care for. And then, after that longer term, I'm hoping to, get these teams on board. I'm going to be working with UFC and snowboard a little bit here and there as well. And hopefully kind of building the practice down there and seeing where that goes.
That's awesome. Great. Dr. Lopez, how about you?
Yeah, I'll be joining sorry,
Oh,
go ahead. Go ahead. You want to? I'll finish. I'll be joining an academic practice that's already established sports medicine practice in New York City. So it's really filling a void of previous non-operative physicians there, but hoping to kind of grow the sports coverage in the city because it's kind of sparse at this point. So kind of building that from the ground up, hopefully. But yeah, that's my plan.
That's awesome. All right. And lastly, Dr. Wolf?
I'm planning on doing a half and half pediatrics and academic pediatric sports medicine, and I'm in final negotiations between 2 locations.
Great. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
All right. It looks like we have another question here from Thomas. So he says he's noticed some fellowships are open to all specialties and others are specialty specific. He wants to know what the differences are between training at a Peds-specific sports medicine fellowship versus a program that accepts a variety of specialties. So Dr. Wolf, I'll start this question with you.
Sure. So finding a sports med fellowship that is a good fit as a pediatrician is definitely challenging. I knew going in that I didn't want to take care of older athletes. And so my program specifically focuses on athletes, mostly ages 30 and under, because we do see college athletes at Northwestern University and also some of the grad students. So what I basically did was talk to a lot of pediatric sports medicine doctors about where they did their training and what their experience was like. And then on ERAS, you can list what your primary specialty is. So for ones that are pediatric sports medicine, or they all have to be listed under a primary specialty. However, what that subspecialty indicates really is what the continuity clinic is. So some programs use an adolescent medicine clinic and then listed under pediatrics because they figure that pretty much everybody would be comfortable in an adolescent medicine clinic. So the fellowships that are listed as pediatric really vary in how much they're truly pediatric. So I'd say on the lower end, some of them saw only about 20% pediatric athletes. And the reason I chose Northwestern was because it's really, truly 95% pediatric athletes, being 24 and under.
Okay. That's great information to know. Did anyone else have any additional information kind of about the specific programs and what their primary specialty is? Okay. We have another question here from Grant. He wants to know, what are the chances of a primary care doc, family medicine, internal medicine, for example, becoming a collegiate professional team doctor?
I guess I'll give you a break, Dr. Goodman. That's a tough question. I think it's kind of, at least from my perspective, it's kind of the right place at the right time kind of phenomenon. I think if that is your interest, you have to find a program that has collegiate and professional team experience. It is a component of networking that you have to take into account. So you have to get to know people, you have to get to know the right people, and you have to show that you're not only a kind of competent physician, but an excellent physician. So I think it has to be a right time, right place kind of thing. At least that's my perspective. Because I think collegiate and professional is high level. It's there's some politics involved, and I think the job security may not be as strong as some of us think.
Okay.
I would
Dr.
agree with
Newby-Goodman.
Dr. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh,
I was just going to ask if you had anything to add.
Yeah, I was going to say, I agree with Dr. Lopez. There's a lot of right place, right time, because a lot of times when people have those jobs, they don't just leave them if they, have the choice. But otherwise, I disagree with everything else he said.
Okay. Alrighty. Doesn't look like we have any new questions at the moment, but students, just keep brainstorming. Anything you want to ask, go ahead. Yeah, never mind, right on cue. Thank you, Megan. So this next question is, aside from school-affiliated sports medicine associations like AMSSM, what extracurricular, shadowing, research opportunities did you guys partake in, and how did you go about getting your foot in the door in those? So Dr. Johnson, I'll start with you here.
Yeah. So during med school and early in residency, I did a few things that weren't directly affiliated with my school. I reached out to like the New York Special Olympics and did a lot of volunteering with some of their events. And I just kept my eye out for any kind of local, either like community health or sports kind of health events, just to try and reach out and email and see if there was anything I could volunteer at and help out with. A lot of times you'll see like marathons or triathlons that'll be asking for medical volunteers. So the New York City Marathon, I volunteered for a few years. So I think it's important to do that during your medical school. That definitely wouldn't be school affiliated necessarily. And then research, as far as for fellowship, it just they do look for some kind of involvement in that a lot of times, and really it matters a little bit on what you do your research on and doing so just any is big, and they do take that into account.
Okay, Dr. Gende, how about you?
In medical school, I guess I could say like I was a little unique in the sense that I created a 10K in my hometown. And so created that 10K and then, served as the race director and the medical director, still do for the past eight or so years now. And I think, that gave me good insight into working with an athletic population, not necessarily as their physician, but as the medical director for this race that I created. So that gave me that kind of like local 10K half marathon coverage experience. And I think that's important. And then being a DO and being a CrossFitter myself, I just kind of started my own like OMT clinic in my CrossFit gym, kind of unofficially working with athletes in my gym and kind of learning MSK medicine on the fly after one rep maxing my back squat, I guess. So I think, you have to you have to advocate for yourself, which is something that everybody's been doing in order to get into medical school. And you have to continue to do that. And you have to continue to, hey, I want to cover a triathlon. So actively search out that a triathlon that works with your schedule and like give that some time and some energy. And I think a little bit also of like, don't take no for an answer. If it's something that you really want, ask twice, ask 3 times, ask the 4th person, and get that opportunity that's going to make you stand out.
I think that's some great advice. I actually love this question by Megan, so I'm going to give everyone a chance to answer this before we move on. So Dr. Newby-Goodman, what kind of things did you do?
Maybe I just can't remember, but I don't think I was as proactive as y'all. I just was in intramural sports. So when I wasn't studying, I was playing some basketball or soccer. Most of it was, I was just usually involved with whatever organization and volunteer stuff. I don't think mine was only sports medicine related or per se. So I don't know how much good advice I can give you on that question.
Oh, it's appreciated nonetheless. Dr. Lopez, how about you?
Yeah, I think a lot of the fellows, in med school, there were sports medicine clubs. So, there were, the sports medicine docs attached. So they were very open. So you could, contact them, try to join them on the sideline. So, just kind of putting yourself in that position. And then if you have like a special interest, like for me, this goes to the next question, like I haven't been to my boxing gym in 6 months or maybe a year now. So just doing that, my trainer like asked me to, do ringside. So like putting yourself in that position, putting yourself out there that you bring a certain skill set, you can open up, a lot of opportunities. So that's something I did. But if you look for it, it's there.
Okay. And Dr. Wolf, how about you?
Well, I was pretty lucky because I was a research coordinator in orthopedics before medical school, so I was able to continue some of those projects during medical school. And then my medical school, and I think most medical schools have this, had kind of a summer research program between the first and second year. So I was able to take advantage of that to sort of build up my research. And then in residency, it was pretty busy. We're mostly inpatient, really crazy. So I didn't do too much with the research. I just did the AMSSM cases. But, aside from that, there were things like there was a cardiovascular screening foundation I was able to volunteer with. And again, most of the things came from just letting people know that I was interested and them saying, hey, would you be interested in this? And just continuing to follow up with them. Hey, do you have any ideas of ways I could get involved or suggestions for me?
Okay, thank you. Now we have another question that Dr. Lopez alluded to here from Alex. How personally are you involved with sports, and do most sports medicine fellows excel in sports themselves? So if anyone wants to, kind of talk about themselves a little bit, feel free.
I already said it in my introductions. I don't think I think it's just equal. I don't really know. My co-fellow, he didn't do sports per se, but he's interested in sports all the time. But we're on equal footing essentially. But I did gymnastics in the University of Georgia, so I can't do gymnastics now though.
Yeah, I think you're going to get fellows different interests, and you might have a fellow who does marathons every week. The other one might love just watching ESPN all day. The other one just like seeing sports cases. So, you don't have to be a elite athlete to do fellowship.
Yeah, I think you just have to be interested and enjoy sports, and not necessarily football or basketball or baseball, hockey, just any kind of sport, dance, anything. So people are active, just follow something.
I agree. I think that you'll find that a lot of physicians in sports medicine have participated in sports at some point or another and are still maintaining some kind of activity, whether it's recreationally running or occasionally getting under a barbell or whatnot. But I think it's not necessary. I think it's rather common, but not necessary.
Dr.
And
Wolf,
I would say that.
Oh, sure. I'm guessing Marcia.
I would agree.
Dr. Wolf, did you have anything you wanted to add there? Sorry if I cut you off.
Oh, no, it's fine. As I say, I think most people who work in sports medicine have been active in their lives, and they really believe in keeping people active. And one of the things I think is actually great about sports medicine is you don't have to be great at sports. You just have to enjoy it. And it's actually a nice culture because I think it makes everyone be more active when everyone's talking about, oh, I'm taking these group tennis lessons or I'm training for a 10K or anyway, it just is a really nice culture in general. And it's not that you had to be a superstar athlete.
I think that's a great point. Students, any other questions that you have? I have a couple here you can ask if no one else has any burning questions. I think this is a good one from Alex here. What's a typical day like as a sports medicine fellow? So obviously this is going to kind of be program specific, but just kind of give a quick rundown of what your average day is. Say when you're doing some coverage. So we'll go reverse order. Dr. Wolf, we'll start with you on this one.
It's funny because I was just thinking, I don't think there's any such thing as an average day in sports med fellowship. I bet a lot of my co-fellows would agree because it really is week to week. It changes a lot, but I guess I'll tell you a little about an average week because I think that gives you a better idea. But Mondays, I kind of have a pretty typical clinic, kind of at 8 to 5. I usually leave by 6:30 after I'm done with my notes, just kind of seeing patients all day. And then Tuesdays, it can kind of change week to week, but usually have some kind of elective in the morning, and then in the afternoon I'm in with our pediatric surgeon. Wednesdays we have didactics in the morning, and then in the afternoon I have my continuity clinic, so I actually work in the pediatric ER at Northwestern for that. And then Thursdays, it's an elective, so it could be anything, could be rheumatology, could be anything. And then in the evening I have another lecture. And then Fridays I have usually some kind of elective in the morning, another clinic that's pretty consistent, Peds sports med in the afternoon. And then in the fall, a lot of times, you're covering football either on Friday nights or Saturday nights, depending. And then the weekends, or some weeknights, I'll cover a game. And then weekends, I'm usually covering something, one game or tournament, or just depends week to week.
Okay. How about you, Dr. Lopez?
Yeah, and just like Dr. Wolf says, every day is different. I have 3 fellows in my program, so we split the year into thirds. We all rotate through kind of different cycles. So for example, for me, my Monday, tomorrow I have the choice in the morning of working with one of the primary care sports docs, or tomorrow most likely I'll sit down with the MSK radiologist and go over films for the whole morning. The afternoons, another primary care sports doc. Tuesdays, a half day continuity clinic with internal medicine, and then I work with a private primary care sports doc. Wednesday mornings, physiatrist, and then an orthopedist, the sports orthopedist. Thursday, again, sports orthopedist, primary care sports medicine. Fridays are nice, they're usually half days. We may have didactics in the afternoon. And like Dr. Wolf says, in the fall, a lot of coverage. Right now, for good or for bad, we kind of have a break. So most weekends are pretty much free, which is kind of nice. And that's pretty much it. And again, it changes, week to week. May have lectures here, give lectures, et cetera, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How about you, Dr. Johnson?
Yeah, so my typical week is about 8 to 5 on my clinic times. Thrown in there, I'll have didactics, either an ultrasound didactic or journal clubs or other fellowship didactics in the morning. Those are usually at 7, once or twice a week. And then my coverage can be either on the weekends or on Fridays, especially in the fall with football, or during the week I'll cover anything from Division III college basketball or lacrosse to covering some of the NBA or WNBA teams here in Minneapolis. So my coverage, my clinic is pretty regularly 8 to 5, and it's either working with podiatrists or working with our orthopedists or MSK radiologists, or completing other elective rotations.
Dr. Gende, how about you?
It's almost exactly the same. Just clinic days, covering with primary care, orthopedic surgeons, getting some MSK ultrasound days in, some procedure clinic days, doing half a day of emergency medicine coverage. I'm covering with wrestling and women's basketball now for my winter sports, and so that's kind of dwindling down. Wrestling just had nationals. Women's is, congratulations, is in the Elite 8 now. So. But then everything for our coverage is going to be picking up with track and field. And we still have weekly training rooms with our high school. So some days are longer, some days are shorter. We always have a couple hours of didactics on Fridays. But it's almost exactly the same as everyone else's.
Okay. And Dr. Newby-Goodman?
During the week, pretty much 8 to 5 clinic, different orthopedic specialists, but we've also worked with the nutritionist for 1 month periods, and our chiropractor that sometimes goes with the team, just so we can learn the different aspects there. We still do training rooms. We cover an HBCU, which is historically Black colleges and universities, twice a week. And then since, everything's winding down, I'm actually having a little bit more time on the weekends. But during football season, we're covering actually University of North Carolina and North Carolina Central. We sometimes have like 2 games and post training room rounds to go to. But right now I'm just doing covering lacrosse, which is actually a fun sport. Didn't know until this year. So otherwise, it's pretty busy, but it's at least winding down at this point.
All righty. It looks like we have another question here from Catherine. After I read Catherine's question here, we'll probably have time for one more. So be quick with your fingers if you want your question asked here, okay? So this one here is, as a woman in sports medicine, are there any challenges to being a female physician for men's teams? So Dr. Johnson and Lopez, I'm probably going to leave you out of this one. Dr. Gende, would you like to start this one?
Was it the question like any disadvantages with men's teams?
Any challenges that you find as being a female physician?
It's sometimes hard and heavy to do some OMT or some like musculoskeletal assessments on a large lineman. For me, and I'm not particularly like a small woman, but that's maybe a little easier for a 6'5", 230-pound male than it would be for me. As far as like, kind of locker room stuff, training room stuff, not necessarily. It was, I think it was very, very, it was nice. It was comforting. It was fine. It was good. Going in the training room, going to the locker room, with wrestling, with football, there was never any awkward moments. The athletes know that you're there as the physician. Coaches were always fine and very supportive. So I think just the challenge was, for me initially just kind of like, holy moly, that's a heavy leg. How am I going to do, a leg pull on this really heavy leg? And just kind of feeling like you're walking through cornfields as these people are giants that you're walking around. But no significant challenges, no.
Dr. Wolf, did you have any challenges?
Our department at Lurie Children's Hospital, which is Northwestern, is 75% female. So I think I had that going for me in a way, and that it's pretty much the norm. And all the sports teams at Northwestern, they have a mix of genders on them in terms of their coaching, athletic trainers. So I never felt uncomfortable in any way. Sometimes, I am a smaller person, so sometimes I have learned ways to do an exam maneuver using maybe your athletic trainer or someone else in clinic to help you with some of the force in some of our 300+ pound people.
And Dr. Newby-Goodman, did you find any challenges?
So my actual biggest challenge was, when I started fellowship, I had a 4-month-old, which, was difficult. And I was actually nursing at the time. So the difficult part was going to like football games. You were there so long before, during the football game, then afterwards, then trying to find time to like pump, and trying to find a place to actually keep the milk cold. And the hardest part was actually traveling with the team, because no one's thinking about that half the time. Like there's not a room per se, and like, so the first thing I would do is like, some of those locker rooms were nasty and I ain't about to do pumping there. So just that was the biggest thing, because I don't think anyone thought about that. And then it got to a point where I just brought a cooler with me on my travel with the team, because like at least I'll fill it up with ice before I leave the hotel, just to try to make those situations. And like long bus rides, I just had to say, whatever, this is what I got to do. So.
All right, thank you all for that. So it looks like we're getting pretty close here to the end. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of wrap up. So just kind of before we conclude, I just want to give a brief shout out about the annual meeting upcoming in Houston. For students, if you're able to attend, there's going to be an Ask a Fellow table at the meeting. There's going to be current fellows sitting there. If you want to ask any follow-up questions to this or get any specific advice from those fellows, you have an opportunity there. There's also going to be some resources for residents and students at that same table, where you can find out how to get more involved with AMSSM if that's something that interests you, and some some resources that are available on the website. The table is going to be located near the exhibit hall during the continental breakfast and refreshment breaks. Also at the annual meeting, there's a chance to register for a mentor session. So you can email Joan Brown at joanb@amsssm.org. I'll type that in the little messages here for everyone to have that. It gives you a chance to do some one-on-one mentoring with a current sports medicine physician, similar to the environment that we're in right now, but you'll be able to ask any questions, get any advice from them. I did it the first year I went to the meeting. It was extremely valuable. So let me just type Joan's email real quick in here. There that is. And then lastly, I just want to thank everyone for their time tonight. Thank you to all the students who were able to come out. You guys asked some great questions. And then obviously thank you to the fellows, Dr. Wolf, Lopez, Dr. Johnson, Dr. Gende, and Dr. Newby-Goodman. Can't thank you all enough for taking the time out of your busy schedules to help the doctors of tomorrow figure out the path that's right for them.
No
It
problem.
was a pleasure.
No problem.
All righty. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. Thank you all.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.